If you're the one who always leaves, you're not protecting yourself. You're training everyone you'll ever love to stop trying. I want to sit with that sentence for a minute because we're going to talk about who the avoidant actually ends up with. And I promise you, it's not who you think. You think it's the one who got away. You think it's the person they were too afraid to love, the one they pushed out the door and then spent years telling themselves they were over. You think it's the villain of the story, the one who did them wrong, the one who finally broke them. No, none of that. The avoidant ends up with the person who asks the least of them. And that's the tragedy. Because the person who asks the least of you is the person you can never lose. And the person you can never lose is the person you never really had. Now let me give you the image, because I want you to see this before I explain it. There's an old story about taking an island. The army lands on the shore, the general looks back at the water, and he gives the order to burn every boat, every single one. The soldiers watch their only way home go up in flames, and in that moment they understand something no speech could ever give them. There's no way back, there's no plan B, there's no exit. So the only direction left is forward, and that's when ordinary men do extraordinary things because the choice has already been made for them. The boats are gone. The island is the only world that exists. Here's what the avoidant does differently. They keep one boat, just one, tied to the shore. And they tell themselves it's just insurance, it's just being smart, it's just careful, you never know what could happen. But it's not insurance, it's an exit. And here's the part nobody says out loud. Everyone they love can smell it. The person across from them can feel that there's a boat on the shore. They can feel that at any moment. When it gets too real, when it gets too close, when it gets too beautiful, you're going to walk down to the water and you're going to leave. And here's what that does to a relationship. It doesn't make the other person fight harder. It makes the other person stop trying. Because nobody builds a life in a house with a door that's always open. And I want you to see this clearly, because this is the mechanism of the whole thing. The avoidant doesn't end up alone because they're unlovable. The avoidant ends up alone because they made being left impossible. Think about it. If you leave first, you never get left. If you never get close, you never get hurt. If you never need anyone, you never lose anyone. It's a perfect system. It's an airtight logic. And it works. It works so well that it will quietly empty your entire life and leave you wondering why you feel so full of nothing. But here's the thing. The system has a cost, and the cost is invisible, and the cost is this. You don't just avoid pain. You avoid everything that comes with it. You avoid the warmth. You avoid the being known. You avoid the moment where someone looks at you and sees you, all of you, and doesn't flinch. And you tell yourself you're free. You're not free. You're in a cell with the door left open, and you've been there so long you forgot the door opens. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure we're not here to judge anybody. This isn't a courtroom. This is a conversation between two people who have both done things they're not proud of in the name of safety. All of us have. All of us have walked towards something we wanted, and then turned around at the last second because the wanting itself scared us. All of us have told ourselves a story about why we left, when the real story was that we were afraid of what staying would ask of us. So if you're listening to this right now and you recognize yourself, good. That's not a diagnosis. That's a door. So let's get to the architecture, because I believe this. I believe there's a structure underneath every human life. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you can't keep living the way you've been living. There's 3 decisions you make every moment of your life. That's it. That's the whole architecture. The first decision is what you're going to focus on. The second decision is what that thing means. And the third decision is what you're going to do about it. Focus, meaning, action, every moment. Every single moment of your life, you're making those 3 decisions. Whether you know it or not, whether you're awake or asleep, whether you're 20 or 70. And here's what's wild. Most people have never once looked at the 3 decisions. They've just been making them on autopilot for 30 years and wondering why the results look the same every time. So let's watch the avoidant make those 3 decisions, because this is where the whole pattern lives. The first decision, what do you focus on? The avoidant focuses on the risk, not the person, not the possibility, not the warmth that's sitting right there in the room, the risk. What could go wrong? when they could get hurt. How long this can last before it falls apart. That's the focus. The second decision, what does it mean? It means danger. It means this will hurt me. It means I need to protect myself. The third decision, what do you do about it? You leave first. You keep your options open. You never fully arrive. And there it is. 3 decisions made the same way 1,000 times, and the pattern builds itself into a life. Now here's the part that should give you hope, and I want you to really hear this. It's not ability, it's motive. The avoidant is not incapable of intimacy. They're not broken. They're not missing a part that other people have. They have the same equipment as everyone else. They have the same heart. They just pointed it in a different direction. And they've been pointing it in that direction for so long that it feels like gravity. But it's not gravity. It's a habit. And habits can be changed. Not by force, not by willpower, by understanding the pattern and by making a new decision. So what's behind the story? It's your state, your mental, your emotional state. And I want you to understand the difference between state versus story, because this is one of the most important distinctions you'll ever get. The story is what you tell yourself. The story is the narrative, the explanation, the meaning you've assigned. I'm not good at relationships. I always pick the wrong person. Love isn't for me. That's the story. But the state is what's actually running you. The state is the emotion underneath the story. And for the avoidant, the state underneath every story is fear. Not anger, not coldness, not indifference. Fear. The story says I don't need anyone. The state says I'm terrified of needing anyone. And you can change the story all day long and it won't matter because the state is still running the show. Let me say that again. The story is the surface. The state is the engine. And if you want to change the life, you don't change the story. You change the state. You change what you focus on. You change what it means. You change what you do. That's the 3 decisions again. That's the whole game. And it's available to you right now in this moment, in the next 60 seconds, whether you're sitting in a car or lying in bed or walking down a street somewhere. It's all available to you because the 3 decisions don't wait for you to be ready. They're happening right now. They're happening in this sentence. So the question isn't whether you're making them. The question is whether you're making them on purpose. So let's answer the question directly, because I've been circling it and you deserve the answer. Who does the avoidant actually end up with? Not the one who got away. Not the one they were too afraid to love. Not the one who broke them. The avoidant ends up with the person who asks the least of them. And I want you to see how that works, because it's not romantic, it's not dramatic, it's not the movie version. It's quieter than that, and it's more devastating than that. The avoidant ends up with the person who never needs anything. The person who never asks for a moment of your time, never asks for an explanation, never asks you to show up, never asks you to stay. And here's the sentence that breaks your heart. The person who asks the least of you is the person you can never lose, because you never really had them. Think about the one you kept the longest. I mean, really think about it. Was it the one who challenged you? Was it the one who demanded things of you, who called you on your nonsense, who wanted more from you than you were giving? Or was it the one who was easy, the one who never pushed, never questioned, never needed, the one who was always there and never asked you to be there back? The one who made no demands. And you told yourself that was peace. It wasn't peace. It was anesthesia. It was a relationship with the volume turned down so low you couldn't hear it anymore, which was the whole point. Now, sometimes the avoidant ends up with a mirror. 2 people who are both afraid, both running, both keeping one boat on the shore. And they orbit each other for years. They orbit and they never land. They have a relationship that's all distance and no arrival, all potential and no presence. And they'll tell you it's complicated. It's not complicated. It's 2 people who are both terrified of being caught, so they never let themselves be caught by each other. And the tragedy is, they think they found someone who understands them. They found someone who's running at the same speed. That's not understanding. That's 2 people drowning in the same river, each one convinced the other one knows how to swim. And sometimes, and this is the one that breaks my heart, the avoidant ends up with the person who finally stopped trying. The person who loved them, who fought for them, who stayed through the cold and the distance and the one boat on the shore. And then one day, quietly, without a scene, without a fight, That person just stopped. They stopped asking. They stopped hoping. They stopped reaching. And the avoidant felt the shift, and part of them was relieved. Because now there was no pressure, and part of them was terrified. Because something they'd never admitted they needed was leaving. And they watched it leave, and they told themselves it was fine. It wasn't fine. It was the bill coming due for every exit they'd ever taken. But ultimately, and I want you to hear this, the avoidant ends up with themselves. That's the real answer. Not the one who got away, not the mirror, not the one who stopped trying. Themselves. Alone in a room that's perfectly arranged, with a life that's perfectly managed, with a schedule that's perfectly controlled, and a quiet hunger that they've gotten very, very good at not feeling. And they'll call it freedom. And they'll call it peace. And they'll call it having standards. And underneath all of it, there's a person who made a decision a long time ago that it was safer to be alone than to be known, and they've been paying for that decision every day since, in a currency they can't even name. So why does the avoidant end up with the one who asks the least? Because asking is the one thing they can't do. So they built a life where no one asks. They built a life where no one needs. They built a life where no one gets close enough to ask for the thing they're terrified of giving. And it works. It works perfectly, and it empties them. And I want you to see that it's not the partner, it's the pattern. And I know you want to blame the ex. I know you want to blame the one who left, or the one who stayed too long, or the one who never showed up. But it's not the partner, it's the pattern. The partner is just the person who happened to be standing there when the pattern did its thing. And if you change the pattern, you change who you end up with. Not because the universe rearranges itself, but because you stop being attracted to the people who ask the least of you, and you stop being terrified of the people who ask the most. Now let me be honest with you. I didn't learn this from a book. I learned this from a house. I grew up in a house where there was chaos every night, where the people who were supposed to protect each other hurt each other instead, where love came with conditions and conditions changed without warning. And I made a decision as a kid. I made it before I had words for it. I decided I would never be that vulnerable. I decided I would never need anyone that much. I decided I would never let another person hold my whole heart in their hands, because I'd watched what happens when they drop it. And that decision saved me. It really did. It got me through. It built a wall that kept the chaos out. And then, years later, I found out the truth. That same wall kept everything else out too. The same decision that saved me was the one that was going to starve me. I began with anger. That fuel didn't last. For years I ran on it. Anger got me up in the morning. Anger got me results. Anger made me feel powerful when I was actually terrified. And anger is a real fuel. I'm not going to lie to you. It will move you. It will drive you. It will get you places. But anger is a fuel that burns the engine. It doesn't last. It's push, not pull. And one day I had to ask myself the question that changed everything. What's on the other side of this anger? What's underneath it? And the answer was fear. And underneath the fear was a little kid who just wanted to be safe, who just wanted someone to stay. And I'd spent my whole life building a fortress to protect that kid. And I'd locked the kid inside the fortress with me. And neither one of us had seen daylight in years. Now, here's where the avoidant makes their biggest mistake, and I want you to see it, because it's so close to wisdom that it fools everyone, including them. They get hurt, or they watch someone they love get hurt, and they make a decision. Never again. And that decision feels like strength. It feels like learning. It feels like finally being smart about love, but it's not intelligence. It's a scar that got promoted to a philosophy. And here's the problem with the never again decision. It's a bathtub. You think I'm throwing out the bathwater and the baby. Listen to me. When you get hurt, the pain is the bathwater. It's dirty, it's real, it's got to go. But the baby is intimacy. The baby is being known. The baby is the part of you that wants to be seen and held and chosen. And the avoidant, in their wisdom, throws out the whole tub, the water and the baby. And they stand there clean and empty, and they tell themselves they've solved it. They haven't solved it. They've amputated it. And I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly, even if you only answer it to yourself. What's the one thing every avoidant has in common? They'd rather be right than be close. They'd rather be able to say, I told you so. I knew it wouldn't last. I knew better than to trust than to actually be held. And that's the deepest trade, and it's the one nobody admits. Being right is cold, being close is warm. And the avoidant has been choosing cold for so long they've forgotten what warm feels like. They've forgotten that they're allowed to want it. They've forgotten that wanting it doesn't make them weak. Wanting to be loved is not weakness. It's the most human thing there is. It's not distance, it's protection. And protection was necessary once. But the war is over. The war ended a long time ago. And the fortress that kept you safe in the war is now the prison you live in during the peace. So let's go somewhere quiet now. I want to take you to a place that's hard to go, and I want to go with you, because I don't think you should have to go there alone. If you suffered as a kid, you might still carry it. You might still carry it in ways you don't even recognize, in the way you flinch, in the way you over-prepare, in the way you can't let anyone see you when you're not okay. And here's what happens when you meet who you are now and you look back at that kid. It's been a handbook of survival in disguise. The fact that you were alone in childhood means as an adult you are self-sufficient. The fact that nobody supported you means you have no fear of working on your own. The fact that you learned to read a room before you could read a book means you see people, really see them, in a way most people never learn. The fact that you were never chosen means you learned to choose yourself, and that's a skill most people never get. Now listen to me carefully. I'm not telling you that the pain was a gift. It wasn't. It was pain. It was real. It left marks. But I'm telling you that the same fire that burned you can heat your house. The same wound that made you afraid to be known is the very thing that makes you able to know. The same loneliness that taught you to survive alone is the thing that will teach you how to be present when you finally let someone in. Because you'll never take being seen for granted. You'll never waste it. You'll never treat it like it's owed to you. And that's rare. That's so rare. Most people who were loved easily don't know what it costs. You know what it costs. And that means when you finally give it, you'll give it like it matters because it does. And I want you to see the shape of your life, because I believe this. I believe the whole thing is a journey. It's the hero's journey. It's not a metaphor. It's the actual shape of a human life. There's the call. There's always a call. Something that says you can't stay here. Something that says there's more. Something that says the life you're living isn't the life you were made for. And the avoidant hears the call, and here's what the avoidant does. The avoidant hears the call and runs from it, because the call asks for something. The call asks you to leave the shore. The call asks you to burn the boat, and the avoidant would rather stay on the shore, safe and small, than answer a call that might ask them to become someone they don't yet know how to be. But the journey doesn't let you stay. That's the thing nobody tells you. The journey doesn't let you stay on the shore. It will keep calling. It will call through the boredom, through the emptiness, through the nights where you lie awake and feel that something is missing and you can't name it. It will call through every relationship you leave and every one you never start. It will call until you answer. And the only question is how much of your life you're going to spend on the shore before you finally look at the water and decide that the island is worth it. And there's a dragon on the journey. There's always a dragon. For the avoidant, the dragon isn't the other person. The dragon is the fear of being known. The dragon is the moment where someone looks at you and sees the whole of you, and you have to decide whether to let them see it or to run. And the dragon is not there to kill you. The dragon is there to be faced. Because on the other side of the dragon is not safety. On the other side of the dragon is you. The you that you've been hiding. The you that you've been protecting. The you that only exists on the other side of the thing you're afraid of. And you don't slay the dragon by fighting it. You slay it by walking toward it. You slay it by staying. You slay it by being seen and not dying. And when you walk through that fire, you become the hero. Not because you're brave, because you moved, because you answered the call. Because you burned the boat. Because you finally decided that the life you want is worth the fear of wanting it. Now I want to give you something you can actually do. Not a theory, not a philosophy. Something you can do in the next 24 hours, in under 90 seconds, that will change the pattern. Because I believe this. I believe change doesn't start with a big decision. Change starts with a small one. Change starts with a ritual. And I want you to understand why the ritual works. Because if you know why it works, you'll actually do it. And if you don't know why it works, you'll skip it. And skipping it is the whole problem. So here's the drill. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, before you check anything, before you let the world tell you what to think about, I want you to take 90 seconds. And in those 90 seconds, I want you to do one thing. I want you to think of 3 people in your life, and I want you to think of one specific thing you appreciate about each of them. Not a general thing, a specific thing. The way your friend laughs, the way your mother showed up for you once, one specific time, when she didn't have to. The way that person you love looks at you when they think you're not looking. 3 people, 3 specific things. 90 seconds? That's it. Now here's why this drill is not a nice little exercise. Here's why it's a weapon. Because gratitude is not a feeling. Gratitude is a focus. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. We don't experience life. We experience the life we focus on. And the avoidant has spent years training their focus on the risk, on the threat, on what could go wrong, on who might hurt them. And that focus has built a brain that scans every room for the exit. And you can't argue that brain out of it. You can't reason with a pattern that's been running for 20 years. But you can redirect it. You can take the same machinery, the same attention, the same focus, and you can point it at something else. And 90 seconds of gratitude, done every morning, is you taking control of the lens. It's you deciding what you focus on before the world gets a chance to decide for you. And I want you to see something about this drill that's not obvious. The avoidant doesn't avoid people. The avoidant avoids needing people. And gratitude is the opposite of needing. Gratitude is noticing. Gratitude is the state where you're not afraid of the person, you're not scanning them for threat, you're not calculating what they might cost you. You're just seeing them. You're just appreciating them. And here's the miracle. When you practice seeing people, you stop being afraid of them. When you practice noticing what's good, you stop scanning for what's dangerous. It's not being positive, it's being intelligent, it's retraining the machine. It's the simplest way I know to take a nervous system that's been wired for threat and rewire it for connection, 90 seconds at a time. Now let me be honest with you about what this drill is really doing, because I don't want you to think it's a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's a foundation. It's the same logic as the basketball player. You know who I'm talking about. Steph Curry. 500 shots a day, 7 days a week, 15 plus years, 2 million shots. 3,600 makes in a single season. 10% of 1%. And you look at that and you think, that's talent. No, that's ritual. That's the same motion done the same way so many times that it stops being a choice and starts being who he is. And the avoidant has been doing the same thing with avoidance. Same motion, done the same way so many times that leaving stopped being a choice and became who they are. And I want you to see that both of those are built the same way. Both of them are built one repetition at a time. And that means the other one can be built too, the connection one, the staying one, the being seen one, built the same way, one repetition at a time, 90 seconds at a time, starting tomorrow morning. So let me take you up the ladder, because I want you to see where you are on it, and I want you to see that where you are is not where you have to stay. There's a ladder of competence, and every human being climbs it in every skill, in every area of life, whether they know it or not. The first rung is unconscious incompetence. That's when you don't know what you don't know. That's the avoidant who doesn't know they're avoidant. They think they're just independent. They think they're just careful. They think they just have high standards. They don't know that there's a pattern running them, because the pattern is invisible to the person inside it. The second rung is conscious incompetence. That's the moment you see it. That's the moment you're listening to something like this, and you feel it land, and you think, that's me. That's the moment the pattern becomes visible. And it's the most painful rung on the ladder, because now you know what you're doing wrong, and you don't yet know how to do it right. The third rung is conscious competence. That's when you can do it, but it costs you. That's when you stay in the conversation, when every cell in your body wants to leave. That's when you let yourself be seen, and it feels like work, because it is work, because you're doing it on purpose, one repetition at a time. And the fourth rung is unconscious competence. That's when staying stops being effort and starts being who you are. That's when connection is no longer a decision you make, it's a place you live. That's when the person who used to run now turns toward without thinking, without calculating, without scanning for the exit, because the exit is no longer where they live. And I want you to see something about the ladder, because it's the most hopeful thing I know. Nobody skips rungs. You can't jump from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. You have to pass through the painful middle. You have to be bad at staying before you're good at it. You have to be awkward at being seen before it becomes natural. And most people quit on the second rung. Most people see the pattern, feel the shame of it, and then do the one thing that guarantees they stay stuck. They judge themselves for it. They tell themselves they're broken. They tell themselves they're too old to change, too damaged, too far gone. And that judgment is just the pattern wearing a new costume. The pattern doesn't want you to change. The pattern wants you to believe you can't change, because a pattern that's believed to be permanent is a pattern that never gets touched. And I want you to hear this. It's not about being perfect. It's about being on the ladder. It's about being one rung higher than you were last year. That's it. That's the whole game. Progress, not perfection. Movement, not arrival. And the person who's one rung higher than they were last year is a different person. Not because they're perfect, because they're moving. Now, here's the thing about the ladder that the avoidant needs to hear most. The avoidant has spent their whole life being competent at one thing, leaving. They're world class at it. They've climbed the ladder to unconscious competence at exiting. They can leave a relationship, a job, a city, a life, without even feeling it anymore because they've done it so many times it's automatic. And that's the trap. Because the same machinery that makes you excellent at leaving is the machinery that will make you excellent at staying, if you point it in the other direction. It's not ability, it's direction. It's not that you're broken. It's that you're brilliant at the wrong thing. And brilliance can be redirected. It can be pointed at the island instead of the shore. It can be pointed at the staying instead of the leaving. And when that happens, when the person who's world-class at exiting becomes world-class at arriving, that's not a small change. That's a transformation. That's the same engine pointed at a different horizon, and the whole life changes with it. And I want to give you the frame that holds all of this, because it's the frame that changes everything. And it's simple enough to fit in your pocket. If you focus on what you can't control, your energy goes there. If you control what you focus on, you control your life. Both worlds exist. The external world, we can only influence. The internal world, we can control. And the avoidant has it backwards. The avoidant spends their whole life trying to control the external. They control the schedule, the distance, the exits, the conditions under which they'll allow closeness. They build a world where nothing can surprise them, where nothing can hurt them, where nothing can reach them. And all of that controlling of the external is a way of avoiding the one thing they actually can control. The internal, the focus, the meaning, the decision. And here's the irony that would be funny if it weren't so sad. The avoidant is the most controlling person in the room, and they're controlling the wrong world. They're building walls in a world they can only influence, while the world they can actually control, the world of their own attention, runs wild, unexamined, pointing at the risk, pointing at the threat, pointing at the exit every single day. So what does it look like to flip it? It looks like this. You stop trying to control who can hurt you, and you start controlling what you focus on. You stop trying to control the conditions of love, and you start controlling the meaning you give to love. You stop trying to control the outcome, and you start controlling the decision. And the moment you do that, something shifts that you can't unfeel. The fear doesn't disappear. The fear is still there. But it stops being the driver, and it starts being the passenger. And you're the one holding the wheel. And that's the whole difference between a life that runs you and a life you run. And I know you've been run. I know you've been run by the fear for so long that you think the fear is you. It's not you. It's a pattern, and patterns can be changed, not by force, by focus, by the 3 decisions, by climbing the ladder one rung at a time, by pointing the engine at a new horizon and letting it run. Now let me take you somewhere else, because the story doesn't end with you getting what you want. It ends with you becoming someone who can hold it. And this is the part that nobody talks about, because it's the part that asks the most of you. I've worked with 5 million people. 5 million. And I've watched the ones who change and the ones who don't. And here's what I've learned. The ones who change aren't the smartest. They're not the most talented. They're not the ones with the best childhoods or the easiest lives. The ones who change are the ones who refuse to settle. The ones who change are the ones who find a reason bigger than their fear. And I want you to hear that, because it's the answer to the question you've been asking your whole life. Why can't I just decide to be different? Because deciding isn't enough. Willpower isn't enough. You can't out-discipline a pattern that's been running for 20 years. The only thing that can move a pattern that big is a meaning that's bigger. And that's the secret that nobody sells you, because it doesn't fit in a course. Find something you care about more than yourself, and you won't need willpower. You won't need discipline. You won't need to grit your teeth and force it. Because when the meaning is big enough, the action becomes automatic. The staying becomes automatic. The turning toward becomes automatic. Not because you're strong, because you're pointed at something that matters. So let me ask you the question that changes everything. What are you pointing at? And I don't mean what you want to get. I mean what you want to give. Because here's what I know about the avoidant, and I want you to see this, because it's the part they hide even from themselves. The avoidant doesn't just fear being hurt. The avoidant fears being needed. They fear being the one someone leans on. They fear being the one someone can't live without. Because if you're needed, you can't leave. If you're needed, you're trapped. If you're needed, you're responsible for something more than your own safety. And that's the deepest fear of all. Deeper than the fear of being hurt, the fear of mattering, the fear of being essential. And so the avoidant builds a life where no one needs them. A life where they're always the one who can walk away. A life where they're never the answer to anyone's prayer. And they call it freedom. And it's not freedom. It's a life with the volume turned down. It's a life where no one ever asks them for the thing they're most afraid of giving, which is themselves. And here's the unlock, and I want you to feel it because it's the unlock for the whole thing. The way out of the fear of being needed is to need to give. The way out of the fear of mattering is to matter to someone. The way out of the fear of being essential is to be essential. And I know that sounds backwards. I know it sounds like the opposite of what you've been doing, but it's not virtue signaling. It's what you know inside your soul is true. It's the oldest wisdom there is, and it's the most practical. Give people what they want, and you'll get what you need. Give people what they need, and you'll never wonder what you're for. And I'm not talking about grand gestures. I'm not talking about saving the world. I'm talking about the person in front of you, the friend who needs a call, the person you love who needs you to stay in the room when it gets hard. The stranger who needs the door held, the kid who needs to be seen. It's the smallest giving that unlocks the biggest thing. Because every time you give, you prove to yourself that you're not empty. Every time you give, you prove to yourself that you have something to offer. Every time you give, you step out of the pattern that says you're only safe if no one needs you, and you step into the truth that you're only alive when you're needed. And I want to tell you about the fire, because this is where it all comes together. There are two kinds of fuel in this world. There's push and there's pull. Push is fear. Push is anger. Push is proving you're not the kid who got hurt. Push will move you, but it burns the engine and it runs out. Pull is purpose. Pull is meaning. Pull is the thing you care about more than yourself. Pull doesn't burn the engine. Pull feeds it. Pull is the difference between running from something and running towards something. And the avoidant has been running from their whole life. Running from being known. Running from being needed. Running from the moment where someone sees them and they can't leave. And running from something will get you away from it, but it will never get you anywhere. You can run from your fear for 50 years and end up exactly where you started, just more tired. But running towards something, now that's a different life. That's a life with a horizon. That's a life where the fuel doesn't run out, because the fuel is the meaning, and the meaning is bigger than you, and anything bigger than you is fuel that never dies. So here's where we land. And I want you to hear this the way I mean it, slow and quiet, because this is the part that matters more than everything else. The avoidant doesn't need to be fixed. The avoidant needs to be met. Needs to be met by someone who won't run? Sure. But more than that, needs to be met by themselves. Needs to look at the fortress they built and see that it was built by a child who was trying to survive. and that the child did an amazing job, and that the child is not the enemy. The fortress is not the enemy. The fear is not the enemy. The enemy was never the fear. The enemy is the belief that the fear is permanent, and it's not. Nothing about you is permanent except the pattern you refuse to look at. And the moment you look at it, it starts to change. That's the law. That's the law of the 3 decisions. What you focus on, what it means, what you do. Look at the pattern, and you change the pattern. That's the whole thing. That's the whole game. That's all there is. And I want to give you the last piece, because it's the piece that holds everything else up, and it's the piece that most people never get. Life happens for you, not to you, and it's your job to figure it out. Now I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like a fortune cookie, and I know that when you're in the middle of the pain, when you're the one who left again, when you're the one watching someone you love walk away, when you're the one who's been alone so long that alone feels like home, that sentence can feel like an insult. And I'm not asking you to feel it, I'm asking you to try it on. I'm asking you to consider that the thing that broke you is the thing that can make you, that the fear that kept you small is the exact fear that once you walk through it will make you the most present person in any room, because you'll never take connection for granted again. That's the reframe. That's the meaning maker doing its job. That's the whole art. Not that the pain was good. That the pain was fuel, and fuel is neither good nor bad. Fuel is just energy, and energy follows focus, and focus is yours. The pain was never the problem. The meaning you gave it was the problem. And meaning can be remade. Meaning is the one thing you fully own. Meaning is the one thing nobody can take from you. And the meaning maker in you has been running the same program for decades. And it can be repointed, and when you repoint it, the whole life repoints with it. So I'll leave you with this. You've been waiting your whole life for someone who will stay. And I want you to see that you've been the one who leaves. You've been the one who keeps the boat on the shore. You've been the one who asks for the least so you never have to give the most. And the person you're waiting for is not coming to save you, because you don't need saving. You need deciding. You need to decide that you're worth staying for, and then stay. For yourself. For the person in front of you. For the life that's waiting on the other side of the thing you've been running from. And I know you can do it, because I've seen it. I've seen the person who left every room they ever loved walk into a room and stay. I've seen the person who never let anyone in let someone in and not die. I've seen the person who was sure they were unlovable get loved and learn to hold it. And it didn't happen because they got brave. It happened because they got honest. It happened because they finally looked at the pattern and said, not anymore. It happened because they found a reason bigger than the fear. And that's available to you right now, in this moment, not next year, not when you're ready, right now. Because the 3 decisions are happening right now, and you get to make them, and you get to make them on purpose. And that's the whole difference between a life that happens to you and a life you make.